right, we can get started. So hello, everyone. My name is Sophia, and I'm a Client Success Manager here at ClickUp. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune into the webinar today on beginner-friendly project management techniques. It's really exciting, again, to see people from all over the world tuning into the webinar. So thanks for staying up late or getting up early if you're not based in the US. It's really wonderful to see all these chat messages coming in. Today I'll be giving you a beginner-friendly overview of project management techniques in ClickUp. So how to get started organizing a project within our ClickUp hierarchy from start to finish. How do I effectively communicate with teammates and perhaps clients? How do I navigate task features? And of course, report on high-level project data and manage capacity. So the webinar will take likely about 40 minutes or so, after which I will be leaving some time for questions at the end. So on your Zoom menu bar, you'll see a Q&A tab where you can actually send in questions to me, as well as to some of our other customer support reps who are on the call to moderate your questions throughout the webinar. So please feel free to use the Zoom chat menu just as an internal chat feature amongst yourselves. We won't be moderating that for questions, but you can send in questions to the Q&A tab. This webinar is being recorded, so we will post it on our website after it's been completed, and you'll also get a copy of the recording that you can watch or share with others later. So that should be just about everything as far as housekeeping. So we can actually jump right into the webinar. So I do like to start off these webinars by explaining the hierarchy. This hierarchical organizational structure is really important to make sure that each every or team working ClickUp has a proper place to organize their work, but then it also ensures that you can cross-collaborate with teams and see what others are doing. So let's quickly walk through how the hierarchy is structured at a basic level. So at the top of our hierarchy, we have the ClickUp workspace. And when you get started in ClickUp, this will be the first thing that you do after you make your account. The workspace can be thought of as your office building. So it's the container for everything that you're going to be working on to ClickUp. Do keep in mind that while you can create different workspaces within a ClickUp account and switch between them at any point, ClickUp is separated at the workspace level. So it is not possible to view or transfer data between workspaces. That being said, just keep it simple at the beginning and create one workspace to manage everything. In your left sidebar, you'll then be able to create different spaces. So spaces break up the workspace at a high level. They can be used for things like departments within your business, teams, or high-level initiatives that you're working towards. In this case, I have a space for my human resources department in my company, but the space we'll be working in predominantly today is the 2020 initiative space. So I'll be showing you how you can use this to manage your different projects. Within a space, we come to the third level of our hierarchy, which is the folder level. So folders can be projects, clients, buckets of work related to a larger space, really anything that helps you break up work in a space at a high level. I have a couple of examples here, which I'll be walking through with you shortly, but right now I'm in a folder called Project Management. Inside of folders, you'll then be able to create lists to break up projects, to break up folders rather, into smaller pieces. So you can think of lists as the tabs that break up a folder. In this case, I have different lists to break up the various phases of a project that I'm working on. You could do something as well as, for example, creating a folder for a client you're working with, and then lists for the different services you are going to provide to that client. Lists don't have to live inside of folders though. So if you ever have a certain instance where you just need a simple to-do list without that extra level of folder nesting, that's completely fine. And that might also be the best solution for you as you're just getting started with the tool, so you can keep things as simple as possible. And then finally, inside of lists, we have tasks. So tasks are the last level of the hierarchy, but they are arguably the most important. So this is where you're going to be spending most of your time in ClickUp, creating statuses as your tasks progress from beginning phases to completion, delegating assignees to show who should be responsible for completing a task, and then other things like creating subtasks and checklists for smaller action items within the task, or having a comment thread with your teammates as you discuss work on the task. So we'll come back to this task view in a moment just to go over all of those different features in depth, but I want to walk you through now how to actually create a space from step one. So let's say you're first getting into your ClickUp account. In your left sidebar here, you'll click to add a space. And we can call this one, for the sake, project management. You can add a color or avatar to the space to give it some personality if you want. And you'll also be able to indicate privacy settings. So you can either make the space public or you can make it private to select individuals in your workspace. Next, you'll be asked to set up a status workflow for tasks in this space. So this is going to be the workflow that all tasks in my space will abide by. So you might want to keep things pretty simple, maybe just having one beginning status and one closing status, or as I've done here, you can optionally add some other status levels. Next, we come to ClickApps. ClickApps are customizable options set up at the space level, and they're there to help you determine how simple or how complex your work in a space should be. So when you're first getting started with ClickUp, you may just want to turn a bunch of these off and keep things really simple for yourself in the space if you don't need a lot of these features. If you're working, however, maybe in an engineering team or something that needs more of these features, you can turn on different ClickUps as you choose. We won't spend too much time in this area for beginner purposes, but in ClickUp, we have what are called task views. And these are simply different ways of viewing your tasks. So if you prefer to work in a list view or a board view, this is where you'll indicate to ClickUp what types of views you want to be created for you up front. So now that we've created our space, we're ready to start adding in folders and lists. So I can create a folder or list manually in my left sidebar here. So I can add a folder for a project I'm working on, and then inside of that folder, I can create different lists for various phases that I'm working on. But you might also want to check out some of our ready-made folder templates. So by clicking on the plus sign next to that space you've just made and navigating to the templates area, you'll be able to check out our ClickUp template options. Especially the project management templates are the ones that I'm going to be working on quite a bit. I'm going to be explaining to you in this webinar rather. So you might want to just play around with dropping some of these into your space so you can play with various suggested setups we have for different use cases. All right, so now that we've gone over how to actually create a space, let's discuss a little bit about how task features actually work, since this is where you're going to be spending most of your time. So inside of your task here, just be aware that you'll be able to indicate statuses to yourself and others from this drop-down menu, so you can communicate as to a task and how close it is to actually being completed. Underneath your assignees, which we've gone over, you'll also be able to include dependencies. So dependencies allow you to indicate if one task should wait on or block another task in your workflow. And this is a really great way to ensure that each task in a project is done in the correct order. I'll show you in a little bit how this also appears on a Gantt chart. So you can see a nice dependency flow for all of your tasks in one view. Underneath your task title, you'll also be able to indicate a description so you can communicate to your teammates what this task is all about. And these can include rich editing. So if you want to include checklists, bullet points, anything like that, you can just drop those into your description. We also have what are called custom fields, and these were actually included in a folder template that I dropped into this space, but these are perfect for keeping track of details for your tasks that might not be immediately apparent via the status or the title. So for things like budgets related to a project, or review status, if you wanted to have like a secondary status for your tasks, or you could also include something like a secondary date field for an important second project deadline that you need inside of the task. So this is where you'll be able to add in values to those custom fields and also make any desired changes. At the bottom left of our task, we have our subtask area and our checklists. So subtasks are really great for smaller, more detailed action items that need to be done within the parent task. So you can see in our subtask area that it's pretty much an identical body to the parent task. So we have you can have a totally different status, different assignees here, different description, and you can even add a separate checklist or comment thread in the subtask. So for project action items that require a little more detail in a task, that would be a great example of when to add a subtask. In contrast, your checklists are very much about simple action items that can be considered done or not done. So there are no statuses involved for checklists. It's just a simple click off as you move through the task. And you can even assign an entire checklist to one person, or assign individual line items to specific team members. So for really simple to-dos, you can always add checklists to manage those. If you need to add attachments relevant to a project that you're working on, you can also upload those files into your task here. And that also includes our cloud storage integrations. So if you want to create a Google Drive file or something and upload that to the task, you can do that here. Now, good communication is, of course, central to making sure that a project is delivered on time. So we have our task comment thread on this side of the task to ensure that you can communicate fully with your teammates as you're working on a task. So I can actually @mention a team member to trigger a notification that they need to attend to the task. You can also even add attachments into an individual comment, or one of my favorite features in ClickUp is you can assign the comment. So let's say, as you know, if you use something like email to manage all of your team communication, comment threads related to an action item can get super long and unmanageable. And that can also be said about a big task comment thread. So the assigned comment is really a way that you can make sure that important comments are not going to slip through the cracks. By assigning this comment to my team member, she's always going to see this as a line item on the left side of the task, so she can jump to it at any point. And she'll also see this assigned comment whenever she's looking at her personal tasks in ClickUp. So this won't actually disappear until she physically resolves the comment. And then a couple of other features just to note for your project management purposes at the top here. So if you like to track time in your tasks to indicate how long you've been working on them, you can do that here, either via the manual option, or you can actually do it via our timer. So if you want to just start the timer in a task, do your work, and then stop it when done, you can add that login. And these can also be included in dashboard reports, so you can see at a high level how your team has been tracking time and tasks. You can also indicate an estimate. So how long do you expect this task to take to complete? This would be where you can indicate that, and that will come into play a little bit in our capacity planning and reporting later. And then, of course, we have our start and due dates for tasks. So it's important to hold yourself and others accountable for on-time start and completion for tasks. So you can always add in those here, and you can even include times if you want to get granular about start and due dates. Now, one last feature I want to mention inside of the task that will be relevant when we discuss notifications is the watcher feature. So watchers are people that need to receive updates about changes that occur in a task, whether that's an assignee change, a comment addition, a status change. But unlike the assignees, watchers are not necessarily responsible for completing the task. So you will be automatically made a watcher if you are assigned to the task or if you are mentioned in the task. But just note that you can always add or remove people as watchers here if you want them to receive notifications about it. So we'll talk a little bit more about that watcher feature later. All right, so let's come back now and take a look at some of the different folder templates that I've dropped into our 2020 initiative space here. And again, these fall under the project management category of our ready-made ClickUp folder templates. So first we have our project management folder, and we have lists for each phase within that project. So strategy, design, development, and execution. This is a really simple project flow that you might want to try out on your own. And we can see that each of the tasks are grouped under their respective phases. You'll also notice that we have these little diamond icons next to some of the tasks in this template. And these are actually milestone tasks. So if you like to use milestones in your projects, you can, inside of a task, actually mark or unmark a task as a milestone. So you'll be able to see that in reporting and Gantt View and track your progress against those milestone tasks. You'll also notice that we have some different statuses here. So these are actually set up at the folder level for this specific template. So we know now that when you set up a space, you'll be asked to set up a status workflow for that whole space. But if you have an instance where you're working in a folder that needs a different status workflow, you can actually set that up here. So this has been customized apart from the parent space. And you can even do that for an individual list if you have a list that needs a separate status workflow. But again, if that's not important for your workflow, you can toss that out the window. It's just for people that need a little bit more customization in their status workflows. We also have some nice custom fields set up in this template. So these are drop-down fields. So color-coded drop-down options to indicate revision status and review status. So if you're looking to add secondary statuses for tasks, this is a perfect way to do that. And we also have some budgetary custom fields included in here. So we can keep track of our budget, our expenditures, and then we have a formula custom field here. So with this formula field, we're actually subtracting our expenditures from the initial budget to get a final value for a task. So again, there's tons of different custom field options that you can explore, but these are just a few that are incorporated in this initial template. We also have what are called task views. So you'll notice when I'm in my project management folder, I have these various different views at the top of my screen. And task views are simply different ways of viewing your tasks. So if you prefer to work in a list format, but your colleague prefers a board format, we give you the option to create those customizable views and see tasks in different ways. So I personally prefer to work in the list view because I like these clean vertical columns with my task data. But you might like to check out our board view as an alternative option. So in our board view, you'll see tasks arranged vertically. By default, those will also be grouped by status. So you'll be able to identify early phase tasks on the left and then those nearing completion on the right. And you can even drag and drop tasks through status columns as you progress. Now, I am grouping by status in this board view at the moment, but you'll also note that I can change up this grouping at any time. So if I wanted to group by due date, for example, and see tasks that are overdue here and monitor ones that are due in the future over here, I can change up that grouping however I please. I also wanted to showcase the calendar view. So list, board, and calendar are the perfect beginner-friendly task views if you're just getting started with ClickUp. That's why I like to cover them in our beginner webinars. Don't feel like you have to be a pro at all of these views up front. You can just use the couple beginning standard views to get comfortable with the software and do work as needed. So in the calendar view, I can actually get a high-level overview of all of my tasks and subtasks that have start or end dates. So I can view either an entire month on the calendar, or I can zoom in and just see a week, or even all the way down to an hourly breakdown of my tasks. If you have unscheduled tasks, those will also appear in your right sidebar here, so you can actually drag and drop those onto your calendar to schedule them. So this is clearly a great way to monitor key project deadlines and just keep track of what's coming up now and in the future. Let's jump into our next folder template and talk a little bit about what's going on in this example. So in this folder template, we have an example of how you could manage a product roadmap in ClickUp. And we're using our list to break down our different releases by quarter. So each task represents a different feature that we're working on releasing. And we have some different custom fields examples set up here. So we actually have a progress percentage field to keep track of task completion based on subtask checklists and assigned comments that are completed. And then a couple of colorful drop-down fields as well. And we'll skip this sprint custom field for our purposes of the demo today. Now, one great view that you can check out if you were to be organizing, something like a product roadmap in ClickUp would be the timeline view. The Gantt view. So in the Gantt view, it makes it really easy to, similarly to calendar view, keep track of any tasks that have a start or due date scheduled. And you can actually even drag and drop tasks onto the Gantt view in order to schedule them. This is also a great place to set and visualize dependencies for your tasks. So let me jump into a different Gantt view just briefly to showcase this for you. So if you're, as I noted a little bit earlier, if you have those milestone tasks, you'll be able to see them visualized by this little diamond icon here. And you can see I've set up different dependencies between my tasks that are visible in the Gantt view. So you can easily set up dependencies by dragging and dropping this line to connect two tasks. And then if you needed to, you can also reschedule tasks in bulk. So projects, of course, don't always go as planned. So if your project deadlines get pushed back a little bit, you can simply turn on the reschedule dependencies option in the Gantt view. And actually push all of your tasks back on the Gantt view. This is also a perfect view to get progress percentage insight for your tasks. So for example, I'm viewing my list called Phase 1 in this Gantt view, and I can hover over that list to see how close I am to completing all of the tasks within that list. Another place that you may want to explore is our workload view. So the workload view is a really great place to visualize capacity for all of your teammates. And of course, when you're working on a project, there's a ton of moving parts. And this is a place where you can check in with your teammates, see how much they have on their plate, and then allocate tasks accordingly. So there are actually a couple of different ways that you can measure workload inside of this workload view that we've created for our roadmap folder. So the first would be number of tasks. So I can actually set a daily capacity for my teammates as to how many tasks they can take on per day. And I'll be able to see a rolling date period for any tasks that this individual has scheduled over this time. So I can click onto my view here and see scheduled tasks that this person has and how close they are to meeting that capacity day to day. If you have some unscheduled tasks in whatever location you are viewing, those will also appear in the right sidebar here. And you can actually drag and drop that onto someone's agenda to allocate that task to them. The other option that you'll want to explore for project management purposes would be the time workload option. So time estimates are a crucial piece of many people's task management. So if you've added time estimates to your tasks, you can actually set a capacity weekly for how many hours someone should be able to take on per week. In this case, I've set up a 40-hour capacity for my teammates. And then I can see, again, on a daily basis, how close this person is to hitting their capacity, and then schedule tasks for someone as I see fit. And then lastly, I wanted to just briefly touch on the task management folder template. So this is a great, very simple folder template for people just getting started. Here we have 3 lists to break down our different types of tasks. So immediate action items, ideas, and backlog tasks. Just like we saw in our board view, you can apply different groupings in your list view as well. So by default, your tasks in the list view will be grouped by status. But actually, if you add in this folder template, you'll see that tasks are grouped by none. And this is another really great way to see tasks in a simple format. So we're just getting one unbroken block of tasks, and we've cut out that grouping to just tick through tasks from top to bottom. This view also incorporates those drop-down custom fields, so you can manage tasks by department, and also the progress percentage field to monitor task completion over time. In addition to the workload, the actual workload view that I just showcased, we also have a box view option. So box view, I'll just assign a couple of people tasks in this view so you can see. The box view will show you a box for each person that has assigned tasks in whatever location you're viewing. And you can actually track their progress against those tasks over time. So I'll be able to see tasks grouped by status, so I can see how many tasks in a given status each person has. And if someone's looking a little bit overwhelmed and has too much on their plate, I can actually redelegate tasks by dragging and dropping them from one person to another. So that's another way that you can consider checking out workload inside of a box view. Another key part of strong project management is setting high-level goals that you can accomplish in smaller, more measurable pieces. So to measure goals in ClickUp, we actually have a goals feature, which is really handy. And I've set up a goal here as an example of how you could group high-level initiatives into one single goal. So when you create a goal, you'll be able to delegate it to specific people. And you'll also be able to indicate a start and an end date for the whole goal, so you can hold yourself accountable for starting and ending it on time. You'll also create various targets. So these are the actual measurable results that you're going to need to complete to consider the goal finished. So we'll add in a target name here. You can choose an owner for each target that you create. And then you'll be asked to classify your type of target. So how do you want to measure this result? You could do a simple number-based target. So for example, hire 10 reps. You could do a simple true-false target, a currency target, or my personal favorite is the task target type. So this will actually allow you to link specific tasks or ClickUp lists to your goal. And then as you complete those tasks, you'll be able to see the progress of your goal update in real time. So if I open up this task in the goal, I'll actually be able to check it off. And you'll note that I can also see inside of the task that it's linked to this goal, so it makes it even easier for me to jump back into that goal and I'll be able to see the progress of the goal in real-time update. So that's one way you could manage high-level goals related to a project that you're working on. The other one that I would recommend checking out would be dashboard reporting. So this is a perfect place to get high-level insight into projects that you're working on. And you can create dashboards for pretty much anything. The most common use cases that I see would be dashboards created for specific teams. You could create a personal dashboard for yourself. And in this case, I've created a dashboard to manage all of those 2020 initiatives that I'm working on. Inside of a dashboard, you'll be able to create various widgets to see all of your task data in different ways. So for example, I have created an embed widget here, and I've actually added a link to a Gantt view that I have for my Q3 roadmap into the embed widget. So I can actually just see that Gantt view within my dashboard and keep tabs on the tasks. We also have a chat widget set up here. So this is yet another place where you can have a high-level conversation with your teammates outside of that task comment thread. So you can actually chat with them, and I've even mentioned a task here so that my teammate can click into that task from the dashboard, and we can just collaborate here and reduce context switching and searching for different action items in the platform. The portfolio widget is also critical to project management. So this is the perfect place to link different lists or folders that you're working on into one widget. So I've linked in this example some different lists within that project management folder I showcased, and then I can see at a high level what's the status for this specific list. What's the status? What are the actual task statuses in that list, as well as things like progress percentage, completed rate versus overdue tasks. And then of course we have our milestone tasks visible in the portfolio. And there are a few other column options that you can enable as well. So if time tracking and estimates are a pretty big part of your workflow, you can see the cumulative time tracked and estimated for a list. And see how much time you have remaining to complete it. So that's a good one for people that are not going to need to be delving into the nitty-gritty task details, but they just need a 100-foot view of the project progress. And then a simple example I've included here is just the pie chart widget. So this one is grouping workload by status for my 2020 initiative space. So that I can see how many tasks are under review, in progress, etc., at a high level. So again, there's tons of different things you can do with the dashboard reporting piece, but hopefully that gives some insight into some beginning techniques you can use. Before I take your questions, I want to delve into a few personal project management tips. So the first would be revolving around notifications. So we talked about what a watcher is in ClickUp, but where are you actually going to get notifications for tasks that you're watching? That would be under the bell icon on the left side of your screen. This is a really critical part of ensuring that you're not missing out on important task information. So I do recommend checking your notifications minimally 3 times a day. This is actually personally the first thing that I do in the morning when I get to work is I come in here and I clear out my notifications, work on any tasks that I need to get done, or at least make a note to get to them later in the day. It doesn't take long to do at all, but definitely you will be happy if you get on this at least couple to 3 times a day. And it's also a great way to make sure that you're communicating effectively as you're working on a project. So a few other things you can do in the notifications area. I can reschedule an overdue task that I need to get to later. I can stop watching a task to stop getting notified about it. And I can also filter them out a little bit. So if I want to focus only on tasks that are assigned to me or tasks where I'm mentioned, I can filter out my tasks a little bit that way. Finally, definitely check out the task tray feature. So if you have a task that you know you need to get to later in the day, but you just don't have the bandwidth to get to it now, you can drop it into your tray and it will be saved for you at the bottom of your screen. So I'll always have this top of mind for me, and whenever I'm ready to work on it, I can just pop that open, do whatever I need to do, and then I can remove it from the tray when I'm done. One additional thing to note is in the settings area, you can set up granular notifications via email, mobile app, or desktop app if you prefer to work out of some other types of notifications. So these again are based on tasks that you are watching and are a personal preference that each person would need to set up within their ClickUp workspace. But for project management purposes, my favorite area is the start and due date section. For example, I can set up a due date reminder email for myself for my assigned tasks at a specific period, a specific time rather. You can also set up a before due date reminder just to get a little ping before you have to get a task done. Finally, I wanted to point you in the direction of Inbox, which can be found under the Home button here. So Inbox is your centralized place to work from. This is where you will see only the tasks that are assigned to you, and they will be grouped by date. So under the Inbox tab, I can see any task that is assigned to me that has a start or due date of today or earlier. So I can prioritize these tasks throughout the day. I can also see tasks assigned to me that are coming up next and anything that I have recently completed. Finally, I'd check out the unscheduled area. So these are tasks that are assigned to you that don't currently have dates. So by default, these will also be sorted by priority. So you can see the most urgent tasks at the top and then just put them on your schedule whenever you're ready to work on them. All right, so I see that there are a good amount of questions popping up. So now I'm gonna turn it over and take a look at some of those questions and answer them for you here. Emily, you ask, is there a way to show progress based on time tracked compared to the time estimate? Yeah, so hopefully the portfolio widget answered that a little bit for you, but the other dashboard widget you might want to check out is the time estimated widget. So with this widget, you will actually be able to filter by location. So I can choose, from which spaces or folders and lists do I want to pull this data. And then I will be able to see a breakdown of the time tracked by person. So in each of their assigned tasks, how much time did they estimate versus track, and then how much time is remaining to actually complete each task. So I can see a cumulative value by person and then a breakdown for each of their individual assigned tasks. And then the other one would be the portfolio widget. So that would be the time estimated, time tracked, and time remaining columns will give you a high level overview of that for lists or folders that you link to the portfolio. And then Leon, you ask, can time tracking for subtasks relate back to the main parent task? Yes, you can do that. So we have a time tracking roll-up feature. So let me add in a subtask here. If I add in some time tracking, when I click on the time tracking icon for my parent task, I can see both the time tracking for this task and then also the total with the subtasks. So there's that roll up visual that you can get when looking at the task time tracking area. Kinari, you ask, is there a way I can ignore weekends entirely? So it's not possible to prevent people from scheduling a task on a weekend when they create it, but we do have the option to skip weekends when creating new items from a template. So for example, in ClickUp, you can set up templates for spaces, folders, lists, tasks, and checklists. Let's say this action items list is one that I want to save as a template. So save as template. You can choose what you want to carry over in the template. And then later, if I'm ready to actually make a new list from that template, I will see the option to either import dates as is or remap the dates. So this will allow me to set, for example, a start date for when you know your new project is starting. Or if you know the final date for a project, you can actually remap based on the end date. And ClickUp will remap all of those other task dates in the template accordingly. And you will see the option to skip weekends when creating that new item from a template, so that ClickUp won't schedule in those tasks on the weekends. Kamal, you ask, is there a way to divide up project fee into different phases and then automatically show fee remaining hours remaining as work is done on each phase? How do you show the totals for tasks within a phase? Is there a way to divide up project fees into different phases and automatically show remaining? So in order to organize fees in ClickUp, most people would use a money custom field. So for example, in my phase, let's say you're using a setup similar to this folder where lists are the different phases within a project being managed in the folder. At the folder level, we can create a custom field like we've done here to manage budget. You'll be able to enter in different values for each task within a phase list. And we do also have the ability in list view to calculate these numeric columns vertically. So I can calculate all of the budget fields in my phase one list to find their sum, average, or range. And then you can also use that formula field so that I can calculate the budget and expenditure field. So budget minus what was spent will give me a value for each task. Now, if you're looking for a way to roll that up, that would be something to look at in reporting. So basically the hours remaining piece that you ask about, you asked the totals for tasks within a phase. That could be something that you do in the reporting area with a calculation widget. So if I wanted to add a calculation for that custom fields budget, I can calculate that to see the different values, sum, average, or range. So that would be one way that I know people kind of keep track of different custom fields as you add more values to a budget field or something like that. But if you have further questions about that, definitely reach out to our support team at help@clickup.com, and we'll be happy to offer more insight for your specific use case. Isabella, you ask, how can we analyze the team's productivity by using a dashboard? So there are numerous ways you can analyze a team's productivity. The first one would be something like a time estimated or time tracking widget. So actually we have a time reporting widget that you might want to check out if you measure productivity based on time tracking. So for over a specific range of time, I can choose to see how much time individuals have tracked in specific tasks and keep track of it that way. Another thing that you might also want to check out is something like some of these customizable pie chart widgets, like the one that I showed earlier. But yeah, just to briefly come back to the time reporting widget, I can see for each person their cumulative time estimated this year versus tracked, and then a breakdown of tasks that people have been working on. But in the custom widget area, you can do things like see a bar chart of all of the number of tasks that someone has completed. So assignee tasks, filter by location if you want to, and then I can see how many tasks each person's actually gotten done. I also personally really like to use the profile feature to monitor teammates' activity. So if you click on someone's profile avatar anywhere in the application, you can jump into their profile, which is essentially their inbox. So here under the inbox, I can actually see what this person's actually completed lately. You can also see what's coming up next for them and what's overdue for them or due today. So that would be another way you could monitor activity for a user. Fiorella, you ask, let's see. Fiorella, you ask, how can we do that? In some projects, I just want to have the list view and not board, but others, it does not allow me to delete them. So I'm not getting the full context on that question, but I'm assuming the question is, you want to have, in some project, you just want to have a list view, and in others, you want a board view. So when you create a space, you will be asked in the default settings for view area, what views you want to be created up front for the space. So these are called required views. And we do require you to have a list view created up front. So this can't be deleted. So if you try to delete a required view, you won't be able to do that. You'll see here, actually, if I try to delete this, there's no option for me to delete it because it's required. So if you want to limit the views to just a list or a list and a board, you can always flip some toggles off in your space settings area to turn off certain view types. But this also, if you're on our enterprise plan, you also have the option to set up custom permissions. I don't want to get too into the weeds about this at the moment because it's not super beginner friendly, but this is also something you may want to reach out to our support team about after the webinar. You have the option on enterprise to restrict people from actually creating views. So if you don't want others to be able to create, a list view or a calendar view, and you want to keep it simple, that's an area that you could set that up in. Janice, you ask, if you're tracking both the preparation and review of a task and would like to assign dates for both and track them separately, would the drop-down fields for secondary statuses be good for that? Yeah, that's a perfect instance to use a drop-down custom field as almost like a secondary status for a task. So for example, let's say for my project management folder, I need to create a custom field to keep track of, review status. We actually have one of those set up here. It's a drop-down field. So whoever is responsible for reviewing can come in here and indicate if the review is done or not done. And in the list view, you also have the option to group by that custom field, as well as in the board view. So if you wanted to create a list view grouped by review status, so you can see, okay, what tasks have not been reviewed, are in progress, etc. That grouping option would be a nice way to do that. Edom, you ask, is there a way to migrate your space from one account setup to, say, another account? Say if you have a space in your organization and have personal ClickUp account, can you migrate your work? That is not something you're able to do from the user end, but it is something that our support team can provide assistance with. So if you email them at help@clickup.com regarding that request, they'll be happy to assist you. Anibal, you ask, okay, so yeah, so if you're looking for some insight on how to use ClickUp beyond what this webinar covers, a great area to check out is the Help Center. So inside of your ClickUp workspace, if anyone is interested in some general resources, if you click on the question mark here, You'll be able to access all of our different help resources, including videos, documents, onboarding videos, or onboarding materials rather. You can check out some of our other webinars, and you can also connect with our support team. So if you have a question, you'd like to chat with someone on our team about that, you're welcome to do that here. I have a question from an anonymous attendee. When are we getting a feature to segment time estimates for the individuals assigned to the task? I know we can work around it by using subtasks, but it's inefficient for how we work. It would be great if we could assign individual time estimates to a task. This is actually something you can already do. So in the ClickUp settings area, we have a granular time estimate feature. So it's actually included in the time estimate ClickUp. So we have in the ClickUp settings area, time estimates ClickUp, you'll see the option to turn on estimates per assignee. So this will actually allow you to split up an estimate amongst different assignees. So I'll show you an example of this now that we've turned that on. So in our initiatives space, we'll open up a task. And under the estimate area, if I have multiple assignees for this task, I can actually get an assignee breakdown of that estimate and give a certain value to each person. So that would be a way to split up those granular estimates by person. Take a few more questions today. Chris, you ask list statuses versus customized field statuses. The list statuses seem to always make things more complicated for me. I've spent more time than I should, or than I have trying to organize ClickUp for my team. How should I view them differently? So this is, again, probably something that would be great to address one-on-one with a support rep later, just so we can get a visual representation of what you're describing. But basically, actual statuses only apply to tasks. So only a task can move through a status workflow from beginning to end. We do have what is called a list color and label feature. So in your left sidebar next to the name of a list, you can click on this colorful dot and actually apply a color and label to that list. And that's actually what was showing up in my portfolio widget for this list. This is kind of a workaround way to put a status on your whole list. Your task statuses, though, are all about the action items within a list and how they're progressing to completion. But again, that's something that our support team would love to hear from you on more, so we can assist you with that. Luis, you ask, the time reporting widget is great for checking daily time used, but when I click on a team member to see detail of those tasks, only time is showing, not the name of it. Is there a way to set it there also, or maybe another widget? So I'd suggest looking at the time tracked widget. So this one will actually show you a cumulative time logs for an individual over a specific range of time. And then you will be able to click on an individual's name to see the specific tasks that that person tracked time in. So I can see all of the time that this person tracked over the course of a year, and then a breakdown of that by task. So that's what I would recommend for your use case. Sally, you ask, for team capacity, you check the workload in terms of hours based on the tasks created by the individuals and the estimates used to see how much work they have. So I'm not entirely sure what you mean, but I did want to clarify, just like, again, the different ways that you can measure workload in that workload view. So let's go back to that workload chart. So first is number of tasks. So this is basically a task will count as, it will count as one task for each day that it is scheduled between its start and end date. So for example, this task has a start date of today and a due date of Saturday. So for each day, that task is counting as one task towards this person's capacity. And they can take on a total of 5 tasks per day. And then the second way would be via time estimates. So I will be able to see, to allocate a time estimate for the task. And then again, that will be evenly distributed between the start and end date for the task. So for each day that the task is scheduled, we break up that estimate for that person over the course of those days. Zakarie, I apologize if I did not pronounce your name correctly, but you say, will dependencies stay active when creating a recurring task? That is a great question. Let me check on that. So we didn't chat about recurring tasks today, but I believe if you use the legacy recurring task, you might have the option to carry over dependencies. Actually, let's check out our feedback board to see if that's coming. I didn't want to mention this anyway to the group. If you're looking for a way to monitor features that are coming up or submit a feature request, this is feedback.clickup.com is the perfect place to do that. And actually in this case, it doesn't look like dependencies will carry over in recurring tasks yet, but that is planned. So if you were to vote on this feedback board, you'll actually be notified when this is implemented. So that's on our roadmap. Let's see. Piotr, you ask, is it possible to create a task by email, forward the email to a customer? So we are working on a feature that will be released soon that will allow you to actually send an email directly from a ClickUp task. That's not possible at the moment, but it's coming probably this week or next week. You can, however, actually create a task via email. So if you wanted to, all you would need to do is next to the name of the list in which you want to deposit your emailed task, you would just copy this email instructions button and then just send your email to that address and you can create a new task in ClickUp with these various fields. All right, I'll take one more question because we're coming up on the hour, but let me just see. Gustavo, you ask, can a task have a milestone to be accomplished independent from start and due date? This way I know when it must be done, but can configure when I plan to start and finish it. That would be a good example of when you could add a due date custom field. So for example, if I wanted to add a date field for, planned release, I would be able to add in a date here and actually track that against the actual start and due date for my task. So you could compare those two date fields side by side. All right, well, that's about all the time we have today, but I really want to thank you all again for your time. If you didn't get your question answered today, I apologize for that, but again, our support team is always happy to help answer your questions. So if you'd care to email them at help@clickup.com, we're happy to assist you with that. We will be posting this recording on our website shortly, as well as emailing it to you. So not to fear if you jumped in late or had to leave early, you'll be able to watch it again at your convenience. And we do have some other webinars coming up very soon. So again, under your help resource button, you can always check that out here. But again, thank you so much for your time, and please don't hesitate to reach out to support if you have any other questions. Have a great rest of your day.